All right, moving on. CNBC television, Bitcoin's weekly losses amount as the cryptocurrency briefly slips below $63,000. Let's get into it, guys. Hit that like button. Appreciate you for hanging out.
Today, Bitcoin extends its losses, falling about $10,000 from its recent high. Grayscale's CEO says fees on the asset manager's Bitcoin ETF will drop over time. And Brian Dixon with Off the Chain Capital weighs in on what's contributing to Bitcoin's slide. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Brandon Gomez. Bitcoin extending its losses this morning, trading just under $64,000 as of noon Eastern. The move lower helped drag other cryptocurrencies down as well. Ether fell more than 6% to just under $3,300. That's after topping $4,000 last week for the first time since December of 2021. Solana also sank 10% to $182, a day after crossing $200 for the first time since November of 2021. Now, Bitcoin's weakness began Friday as traders started cashing in on profits from this year's crypto run. Bitcoin soared about 70% to a 2024 peak of $73,679, which it notched last Wednesday. Bitcoin's drop also reflected in crypto-focused stocks today. Bitcoin proxy MicroStrategy falling nearly 12% as of noon, and crypto exchange Coinbase tumbling 5%. Sticking with Coinbase.
Yeah, this is a new guy. What the hell? I didn't even notice that. Crypto KJ, you pervert.
Coinbase, as we hit today's top stories, the Crypto Council for Innovation, or CCI, filed an amicus brief yesterday in support of the crypto exchange. Coinbase challenged the SEC's denial of the company's rulemaking petition, and CCI argues that the SEC's refusal to engage in traditional rulemaking in favor of vague and inconsistent enforcement actions has caused and will continue to cause significant harm to American competitiveness in the new digital age. The council also warned that without clear and consistent guidance, the digital asset industry will not reach its full potential in the US and will be pushed to other jurisdictions. An SEC spokesperson declined to comment beyond public filings on the matter. Coinbase has been in a legal battle with the regulator since the agency charged the crypto company with operating as an unregistered securities exchange, broker, and clearing agency back in June. Next, Grayscale CEO says fees on its Bitcoin ETF will drop in the coming months as the crypto ETF market matures. In an interview with CNBC yesterday, Michael Sonnenschein softened his earlier stance defending costs above the market average. The crypto fund manager charges a 1.5% management fee for GBTC, much higher than those by other Bitcoin ETF providers, including BlackRock and Fidelity, which charge 0.25%.
0.25, literally 6 times less than what he charges. There's no way they're going to be keeping that. No way they're going to be keeping that fee the same.
According to CoinShares data, Grayscale's GBTC has logged outflows of more than $12 billion since it was converted into an ETF in January.
$12 billion in outflows because they want to have a 1.5% fee. That's crazy selfish. That's what that is.
In no small part to those higher than average fees. Grayscale also wants to introduce other avenues of giving investors less costly ways of accessing its Bitcoin ETF, including a mini version of its flagship product. Last, a federal judge blasted the SEC for a gross abuse of power in its legal battle with blockchain firm Digital Licensing. District Judge Robert Shelby said in a Monday filing that the agency engaged in bad faith abuse of the judicial process and undermined the integrity of the court proceedings in its attempts to freeze the company's assets. The SEC sued Digital Licensing, also known as DebtBox, back in July of 2023, claiming it defrauded investors. The regulator also pointed to a YouTube video posted by DebtBox, where the firm said it had moved its operations to Abu Dhabi and was under the region's jurisdiction, not the SEC's. Well, the SEC claimed the company was trying to skirt US regulations, but lawyers for the company said those claims were misleading, and that the company was responding to a viewer question about the benefits of operating in UAE. In the end, the judge sanctioned the SEC and ordered it to pay some of DebtBox's legal costs. We did reach out to the SEC for comment, and a spokesperson told us the agency is reviewing the decision. All right, for our main story, Crypto World's Jordan Smith spoke with Brian Dixon, CEO of Off the Chain Capital, about this week's steepening declines for Bitcoin and whether the selling pressure is here to stay.
I'm assuming it has to do with something with Ledger security, the way they do that. The Bitcoin address, like it like slightly changes. It's weird. I actually Fun fact, I lost money actually doing that way back in the day, not understanding that the address does change. So you guys need to be careful. Every time you use your ledger, make sure you guys go and copy that address at that moment. Okay? Please, just be safe.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for being here. First things first, we have to talk about your reaction to this crypto sell-off. Bitcoin's sinking back down to around $62,000 mark as we're speaking. After it was at $73,000 just a week ago, Ether's down at around $3,200. Is this just part of the plan, short-term pullback before the next run higher?
Dude, this guy's got like perfect hair. Look at that. He looks like an emoji. His Pocket Change said either Coinbase or mining. What do you decide to pick coins besides profitability? So, I mean, realistically, it comes down to like how many. All right. So I was there's a fork, right, of Caspa, this Bugna or something that just came out, right? It's a new coin, right? I was looking at it yesterday. The coins that I choose, it really depends. I look at how many coins are in circulation and how much information's out there. There was like zero information on this coin out there, right? There wasn't, I don't know if there was a pre-mine or anything along those lines, if there was a pre-sale. The amount of coins that were on that network, there was like 100 billion. So like, I know it's going to list way under other coins, right? It's going to be just a nothing burger at the end of the day, right? So that's just, that's like the first thing I look at. Second thing, obviously, you want to look at, like, in my opinion, obviously, you don't want to follow everybody in the space, but like, you do want to go after profitability. Profitability is one of the biggest things, right? You can mine it and sell it into USDT or USDC, whatever you would like. Just mine it, profit from it, and swap it into the coins you want or the coins you believe in. Typically, it's really the top coins are going to be the ones that I'd hold long term, other than like Caspa or something, right? Because I know in the future this coin's going to be fully mined out, and I'm going to be alive for that, right? That's in 2036. That's going to happen. So my hopes for it, it's going to be a bit higher than it's at now, and that's just whatever. I'm going to take a gamble on it, right? So there's a bunch of different reasons why I would choose a coin, but everybody's got their own reasons, right?
I would think so. Largely, we've seen this in a lot of historical cycles. As we get closer to the halving, we'll see an increase in price. We'll see some consolidation and a drawback. But in addition to that, I also think we're seeing some continued selling from the crypto bankruptcies that occurred in 2022. And you can actually see that a little bit because of the huge outflow we saw with GBTC yesterday. There was over 640 million of an outflow yesterday. And I think part of that had to do with probably some of these bankruptcies that are liquidating their GBTC.
There was a lot of talk when those companies went under that we would see the knock-on effects for those for weeks and months and maybe even years to come. Where are we in that process? You're talking about GBTC. We're still seeing companies move through that process. Some have exited. Where are we in that process of seeing the knock-on effects long term?
Sorry, I know I'm breaking this up a lot, but Game with Smokey Dan said mine seems to be fine. Been using the same one to mine too with my Ledger Nano S, and you know what? That's actually a good point. I don't know how the hell it works. I don't understand it. Lawnmower Man says addresses that change are like public keys to the same wallet from my understanding. Yeah, so the way I did it, when I lost money sending money to my Ledger, right, or Bitcoin to my Ledger rather, I ended up copying an address that I sent it to previously. And I mean, hey, listen, I could have done something wrong. I don't know what the deal was, but I noticed after that moment that obviously that coin didn't get to my wallet, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I'm looking at the addresses, and I noticed that my Ledger address has changed when sending money to my Ledger, right? And this was way back in the day. So now I always copy and paste at that exact moment. If I'm going to send money to my Ledger, I'll just plug in the Ledger and, receive it that way. I'm not going to just guess anymore, right? But when it comes to these apps like Tangem or the NFC card, right, Tangem, or the app Trust Wallet, typically that address doesn't change. I think it's just a security feature inside Ledger, but if anybody else knows, please let me know. Crypto Meme says that's correct. So, I mean, that makes sense. 100% makes sense.
I actually think we're really close to the end. In my opinion, probably in the next 3 to 6 weeks, I think we would most likely see a lot of that GBTC being unloaded and some of the other digital assets that they've held. And it's kind of interesting timing because now we're reaching the point where we have the halving that's due to occur in late April. And so with that, we're seeing the prices naturally rise like we've seen in historical cycles. So I'm hoping that that balances it out a little bit with the outflows that we'll see from GBTC or some of the other decrease in some of the other digital asset positions with the increase in interest as we're getting closer to the halving cycle. But I would say probably no more than another month or two is my assumption.
One thing I saw you point to on Twitter was the amount of Bitcoin that's being held in wallets and not traded. And you noted, I think it was Glassnode, shows more than 70% of Bitcoin hasn't moved in more than a year. Talk about why that's so important to pay attention to as we're watching price and adoption of crypto right now.
Sure. So when you look at the percentage of Bitcoin that hasn't moved in a year, which according to Glassnode was around 70%, I think after the last week, it's probably more around 67 to 68%, because we did see some of these long-term holders sell and take a little bit of profits with the price hike. But still, let's use 70% as a round number. So 70% of people holding Bitcoin for over a year is so important, because when we look at the supply-demand economics, with the ETFs entering the market and creating this tremendous amount of demand, if 70% of the Bitcoin holders are holding long term, that leaves 30% of the tradable market that these ETFs can go out and actually acquire this Bitcoin. Well, what does that do as a market? That actually creates a price appreciation, because people need to be incentivized with a higher price in order for them to sell their Bitcoin. And so when you have this thinly traded market like that, I think in time, that's just going to further create price enhancement on the asset.
Real quick, Retro Mike, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Appreciate that a lot. He said UTXO chains track input transactions, and generally you should use a different address for each receipt. You should be able to use any previous one. So, I mean, I could have done something wrong. Again, that was when I first started. Again, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. DJ screaming. the Bitcoin all-time high always cracks me up. But yeah, that's I don't know. It was a weird thing that I noticed, that Ledger always kind of changes up the address every time you're going to receive new crypto, right? You get a new address. But yeah, it all links to the same account that you have, which is strange, right? So I don't know. Let me know if you guys have noticed that. But yeah, you guys, I don't know. I might have screwed something up back in the day, but I've never done that again since. I've always just received it at the same time. I've always copied that new address.
We've talked a lot about Bitcoin here, but there's also altcoins that have soared this year. What's your reaction to the likes of Solana, which is up more than 60% so far this year, and meme tokens, I guess, which seem to be all the rage right now, despite the sell-off we're seeing?
Yeah. So on the meme token side, I think that's largely speculative, and there's some people that can get really lucky in that, but I think most people aren't so lucky with making profits on those kinds of things. But in terms of Solana, I think people are just recognizing the value of the protocol. Solana is gaining tremendous market share on Ethereum.
Solana's
it's growing very quickly. There's more retail and institutional demand. And what are the reasons for that? If we look at Solana as a protocol, it's cheaper, faster, and more efficient than a lot of its competitors. And it has been since inception. So as it's gaining market share, it's gaining utility and applications built on top of it, we're going to see that ecosystem and that base layer, Solana itself, really accrete value over time. And I also think we're seeing a lot of interest on the institutional side, getting exposure to some of the digital asset trust products and things like Grayscale or Osprey, where you can get exposure to Solana. And then they're probably also trying to work the different net asset value versus the premium expansion on top of them.
Let's talk about your investment strategy. Off the Chain Capital says it uncovers value in blockchain and digital assets using a Warren Buffett investment style. Talk about what that looks like in crypto investing. And I guess also explain to me why you would make that comparison, especially with someone who seems to be skeptical of crypto.
Of course. Warren Buffett is one of the most brilliant investors of all time. And I think one of the things, unfortunately, that he's missed a lot on is technology in their early phases, right? He was a big miss on Apple in the early days. He's not understanding the value of Bitcoin. And part of that could be is that Berkshire Hathaway is one of the largest, if not the largest owner of banks in the entire country, right, in their portfolio. And Bitcoin is a threat to the traditional financial system status quo. But what we do is we actually take Warren's tried and proven methodology in terms of investing and finding assets at a deep discount, and we're applying it to this new technology sector. So simply what we do with Off the Chain is we're looking for unique ways to acquire $1 worth of blockchain assets for 50 cents. And we do that between two parts of our investment thesis. We look for private equity in very mature blockchain companies. So we're looking for businesses that are profitable, have minimum or no debt, post-Series A round, and we're trying to find forced or motivated sellers that are seeking liquidity so we can attempt to capture those shares at a discount from where we believe they're intrinsically valued. And then in the same line of thinking, we do the same strategy, but we characterize them into mispriced digital assets. And what that means to us is we're going to try to find ways to acquire digital assets at a discount. So as an example, we could go into a bankruptcy proceeding where we have bankruptcy claim holders sitting on a bankruptcy claim with Bitcoin as the underlying asset, and they may be tied up in that proceeding for several years, but we could attempt to offer them liquidity today to capture that Bitcoin at a discount from where it's valued.
Is that the real Giga Chad? Is that what you guys are saying in the chat? Is that him? We gotta look it up now. Hold on. Give me 1 second. You guys don't know what this is because I didn't until somebody showed me. Let's see. Hold on. Open image and new tab. This guy. Is that the real Giga Chad? Is that him?
Bankruptcy claim.
Let's see. Side by side, what do you guys think? Vote on it in the chat. Is that the real one? Is that him? Is that him? He flexes. Kind of looks like it. Was hysterical. All right, shout out to CNBC television for that.